I'm Joyce Hornady. You might say accuracy is my business. I make bullets.
You are listening to the Hornady Podcast.
Thanks for joining us and enjoy the show.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Hornady Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Seth Swerzik, joined today across the table by fellow marketeer Preston Lentford. Preston, thanks for coming on again.
Yeah, glad to be back.
I'm glad you're here because we've got a guest on the show today that we know and we've gotten to know over the years in a sport that we're passionate about, although not necessarily as good as we.
He's way gooder than us.
Yeah, a little bit. So let's try to digest as much information as we can get out of this guy. And join me in welcoming Austin Orgain to the podcast. Austin, thanks for coming on.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we couldn't be happier because, you are a joy, a spectacle to behold when you're burning down a precision rifle course. And, that's a gift, but that's something that takes a lot of work. And so I want to know all about it. But before we get to the PRS stuff, we got to know, what was Austin Orgain doing growing up? Where'd you grow up at? Where are you from? What were you interested in your younger days, and what got you into shooting?
Okay, so I grew up in Hammond, Oklahoma. It's a really small town, far western Oklahoma, just north of Elk City. More people probably know where Elk City is than Hammond. Growing up, I grew up kind of in a rural place as a farm kid. Really, neither one of my parents were much into hunting or shooting or anything like that. I honestly don't even know why I got into it or where I got into it. For the most part, as a kid, I played a lot of baseball and basketball. Played baseball and basketball all the way through high school, but even during that, I started shooting with the 4-H. 4-H program, we started shooting some pellet rifle, pellet pistol, and actually even predating that, I shot with an association called JC's, and they did BB guns. They had a big tryout deal at Elk City. We had to go in and shoot some and do a safety test deal, and basically they'd take the top shooters on that and put on a team, and then they would go to a competition about once a year, maybe twice a year I think it was, and shoot BB guns. Then really from that, then I went into the 4-H pellet rifle, pellet pistol. Did that till I got old enough, and actually our district, our charter started doing some shotgun stuff. So I started shooting trap. I shot skeet a few times, only at competition. We did not have a trap or a skeet range set up, so I didn't get to practice it, but we'd show up and just shoot it anyway. It was a lot of fun.
Trial by fire.
Yeah, for sure. I was always happy with the way I did there, not ever getting to shoot it. We'd practice a lot of trap, and it was a whole different animal going to skeet. You had to take some pretty quick shots on that. So I did that. Once I got out of high school, got to college. Not a lot of shooting in college. Still hunted quite a bit. Hunted a lot of white-tailed deer. I actually rodeoed. I was a team roper and calf roper in my junior rodeo days all the way through high school, and I actually went on college scholarship.
Nice.
As a team roper and calf roper. So spent 4 years of college pretty much chasing rodeos.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, we've had two pretty elite shooters on here that were golfers. Wondered if you golf too, but no, team roping. That's great.
He's a rodeo.
I'm terrible at golf. I would not call myself a golfer. I go and have fun and drink some beer, and I don't take golf very serious. I wanted to be really good at it after I graduated college and got a job and wanted to be competitive at something. And I started playing a lot of golf, and that's just not my sport. I never did get very good at it. Yeah. So
I didn't know if it was a trend among the top shooters or what.
Yeah, I didn't know. What did you go to college to pursue?
I actually started out in pre-pharmacy. I wanted to go into pharmacy. A college here in Western Oklahoma, in Weatherford, Oklahoma, called Southwestern Oklahoma State University, is one of the premier pharmacy schools in the nation. So I started out pre-pharmacy, made it actually through some organic chemistries and things like that, decided that really wasn't what I wanted to do, transferred over into engineering, and then I'd already had several chemistries, so I took an extra chemistry and minored in chemistry. So,
wow, took a really hard 90-degree turn.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm glad I did. It suits my personality a lot better, I feel like, and I've really enjoyed that career path. Most of it's led more oil field. That's just a lot of what we have out here in this part of the country. But
sure, well, that stands to reason. And man, the rodeo circuit, that's a rough one, both rough physically, but there's the grind of it from the folks I know that did that for a lot of years. There's the grind of it's physically demanding. It kind of hurts sometimes, and then you're doing it over and over, and there's a bunch of travel involved. And
yeah, absolutely. It's very, I'd say it's very short fused. You travel hours and hours and hours and spend hours and hours and hours of practicing for, a few seconds.
Right.
Each weekend, if you're hitting a few rodeos a weekend, you may not perform 10, 15 seconds on a whole weekend. So it's really opposite of the precision rifle, where you're basically performing for an entire weekend. You have to stay hyper focused for an entire weekend. Rodeo is, is a lot of travel and
just
really not much performing. Yeah.
So you get out of college, you settled back. You stayed right there in Oklahoma, I'm guessing, obviously with the oil fields.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what years are we looking at when you graduated college? You get a job, and you're trying to find your niche. And you said you wanted to be a competitive, wanted to be good at something, so you started golfing. What years are you looking at, and when did you find rifle shooting?
So I graduated college in 2012. Kind of funny story there. I was trying to be a career student, and I had a job waiting on me. So my dad said, "Hey, you better go ahead and just graduate and take a job while you got one." And it was a good job. I got an engineering job for a company called Weatherford International. I was a frac engineer. That was in 2012. I was working in Woodward, Oklahoma, which is about an hour north of where I grew up here. Had an apartment there. Was really at the time was doing the training and stuff. We didn't have a very set schedule. I was working a lot of hours. I mean, just all the time. I was gone a lot. Spent probably 200 to 250 days a year in a hotel.
Hard no.
Just working all the time. So at that point, I wasn't able to stay competitive with the rodeo. I couldn't keep horses in shape. Didn't have time to practice. I still had some horses through that time period, but I just wasn't getting to do very much. Really what got me going is I've always been interested in long-range shooting. I've always wanted to kind of know more about it. I just never had the time or application for it. And really at the time in college, I didn't have the money for it. It's a pretty expensive sport to get started in.
Yeah.
So I was working in Woodward. There's a gun store in Woodward called Butch's Guns. Pretty big gun store. They build a lot of custom rifles. I went in there, once or twice a week. Whenever we weren't working, I'd go in and just check stuff out. Got to kind of know those guys up there and be friends with them. He had a rifle built that was sitting on the counter that they had built for somebody else. It was a left-handed. It was actually a left-handed Stiller action on a Manor stock, Bartline barrel. So I saw it, and it was and at the time 6x47 was a pretty popular cartridge, and I'd made up my mind that that's what I wanted. So basically, it was the gun that I wanted. And so I hit Butch up about it, and I said, "Hey, what about this gun?" And he said, "Well, we built that for a guy, but he hasn't paid for it yet." And I said, "Okay." And so kind of the next week, I hit him up about it again. He's like, "Yeah, let me call the guy on that." Well, it turns out the guy didn't have the money to pay for it, had it built. And so he sold the gun to me. He sold that rifle to me, and those guys up there kind of got me started on reloading and how to reload and how to gather dope. I didn't have a Kestrel at the time, and I was just basically trying to shoot a distance and write down, what it took to shoot that. And then it didn't take me very long to realize that wasn't a very good way to do it, because you couldn't take any environmentals into account. One day it would work okay, and the next day it wouldn't work at all. Mm-hmm. So I bought a Kestrel. I started off shooting. They had some small local matches up at Butch's. Very, very difficult matches. They're field-type matches. They shoot a lot of what's called KD lines. And so essentially the stage would have 10 targets, and it'd be 2 shots per target, but everybody shot target 1. And then you go to target 2, and you rotate who goes first. Then everybody shoots target 2. You go to target 3, and they would do it as a first round hits 2 points, second round hits 1 point. So you basically get rewarded for a really good first win call.
Sure.
And so that's where I cut my teeth long range shooting. Probably where I learned to read wind really well, because reading, you got double the points to be able to read the wind and make a good first shot. So it made it really important there. Shot some of that, and then the Oklahoma club, it's called Oklahoma Practical Precision Shooters, OPPS, started in that. I'll rewind a little bit here. So 2012 I graduated. It was about 2015 probably when I got this rifle. and started shooting some club matches. And really what it was I was working all the time. There was just kind of a hole there, man. I've always been competitive in something, and I wanted to compete. In that time frame, I played quite a bit of golf when I could. You know, I'd take my clubs to work with me. If I worked a night shift or something like that, I'd get off in the morning and go play around the golf and then go to bed. Really, I mean, I probably should have took some lessons, should have done something. It took me a long time to figure a lot of that stuff out on my own. Kind of funny story. I wasn't very good with a driver. Had a really bad baseball swing. You know, it'd slice every time. Just could not fix it. Finally, I played golf with a guy that played quite a bit, and my boss that I had at the time, he was pretty good at golf, and he liked to play. They kind of showed me some things on how to fix it, and it was a really crazy way closed off stance that I tried, and I finally started hitting the ball. And I just stayed with that stance until I started hooking the ball, and then I'd start working my feet back around. Anyway, I got to where I could drive the ball really well, and I can still drive the ball pretty well, but I can't hit irons very well now. You know, pretty out of practice. So
a little bit of, like, Nebraska, there's no playing in the winter, so you're pretty much starting from scratch in the spring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's me now. I think I played twice last year. I played a little alumni tournament and then a work deal where I work now. I had a little tournament deal that our company sponsored. So
right on. So what does that bring us to? You're doing the OPPS stuff.
Yep.
You got that rifle in 2015. I mean, that's kind of when you started being a decent shooter, as Tate Streeter would say. Yeah,
so 2015, it was early 2015 when I got that. It was probably like February-ish because they were just starting those matches at Butch's. They usually start about February, March, somewhere in there. Shot a couple of those. Man, I don't know. I kind of took to it like a duck to water. It was I had a knack for it. I really wanted it. I wanted to learn about it. I researched a lot of different stuff. I talked to a lot of really good shooters, how they did things, and just observed how everybody else did things. Fast forward a little bit, Butch at the time was having his belly match, which is a kind of a big money match. You know, it was a little bit higher entry fee, 100% payback, had like $2,500 or $5,000 added. I don't remember. It was a big cash payback match. And so really that's the first big match I shot. In between there, I shot one or two OPPS matches, which was a lot more PRS style than what Butch's matches were up there with the KD lines. So I kind of got introduced to that. I shot this Butch's belly match, which at the time was, you know, pretty big match for the area, and got third in it. And so I won some money there. I shot a little bit in the OPPS that year, went to the OPPS finale that fall and got second at the finale. Then in February of 2016, shot my very first PRS match at Rifles Only. I call it Rifles mostly at that time because there was a lot of pistol shooting involved in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And shooting that, we figured the points up. If there was no pistol in it at all, I shot my rifle well enough to finish second in my very first PRS match, but I dropped too many pistol points. So I think I ended up like 13th or something like that.
In the first
still not bad for the very first match,
no,
especially
not at
with
all.
as much as we had to shoot pistol. I think I dropped 14 points with a pistol or something like that. It was terrible. I hadn't had a whole lot of exposure to pistol except for the pellet pistol shooting stuff. And that showed me right there that I had a weak spot I really needed to work on. So I bought a decent pistol and got really good with pistol, and now we don't shoot pistols at all anymore in rifle matches.
So that brings up a question to me, is like, we've been shooting PRS type matches for a long time now at this point. We're never going to finish near the top, likely. What does it take? What did it take that year? I mean, what was your training regimen, or how did you get good quick, you know?
So really at that time, it was just a lot of rounds downrange. I would go to a match and figure out something that I sucked at. I would go to practice and I'd just practice that, you know. Figured out I wasn't very good shooting off of barricades and positional, especially at the time when I started. We didn't have the quality of bags and gear that we have now. So, and really the quality of props that we shot off of then. You shot off a lot of wobbly stuff, so it took some basically time to figure out how to time your wobble and things like that. And so I would just build a prop and I would go out and I'd just practice that. I would spend whatever ammo I needed to there. Now, that being said, you know, that 2015, 2016 area, I'd say probably more so 2016, I shot a lot of rounds, you know, probably about 20,000 rounds in the year.
Wow.
Ran through about 6 barrels worth of 6x47.
I was going to ask, are you practicing with your
race
competition cartridge?
Yeah, everything I did it with everything what I was going to run. I practiced with exactly what I was going to run. You could practice with a 223 and a 22, and you can get some fundamentals and stuff down. But really, it's best to practice with what you're going to run. You want to know that cartridge inside and out. You want to know what it's doing. And when you practice, I don't practice near that much now. Really, then it was just more of I really, really enjoyed it, and I was kind of hitting matches hard. A lot of those were matches. I probably shot 10 matches or so that 2016 year, I think. Maybe not quite that many. There's a lot of guys from the area that were going. There's a town north of here in Visay, which is actually where I work now. There was about 4 guys up there that were going to the matches pretty hard, and we'd all travel together, and it was a really good time. And so a lot of the rounds were in matches, but I would still practice quite a bit too. If I went to a match and it was, let's say it was some really small targets or something like that I was struggling with, and I would just go set up really small targets when I got back, and that's what I would practice until I felt really comfortable with that. Starting off, it was just a lot of rounds downrange. I didn't have, I had guys in the OPPS that I could shoot with, but I didn't have a lot of people just really local that I could go practice with, so it was a lot of just on my own solo practicing.
Did you have a nice practice range set up, or where were you practicing?
Yeah, I did. So I have a friend that has quite a bit of land out north of town, a guy named Daniel Hughes. He's a pretty big-time hunter, too. We've hunted a lot together, killed a lot of animals together and stuff like that. So he likes to shoot. He's actually a really good shooter. He just doesn't like to reload. And so he'll go out and shoot with me sometimes when he has ammo, but he won't shoot near as much as I do just because he doesn't want to have to reload or get more ammo. But we set up a nice range on his place. I had 2 or 3 different directions for targets. We had from about 300 yards to a little over 1,000 yards, I think. We could have got out to 1,200 or 1,300 yards if we wanted to, but really there was no need. I set up some pretty small targets and some pretty good, decent-sized targets to be able to shoot at. Really good place, shooting across canyons, shooting across ponds. Very difficult place to shoot just because of the way the wind comes through the canyons and the draws. It really made you a good wind reader to be able to practice there too. So.
And that's the Achilles heel of a lot of shooters. A lot of us mid-pack shooters. That's what separates. Yep. Is a lot of it is the wind.
For sure.
So you're in that 2015, 2016 time frame, and I don't know your whole match record, but about 2017, 2018 time frame, you were making podium finishes at national level matches, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, for sure. I think it was 2016. It was in Texas. I think they called it like the Aussie Showdown or something like that. Jordy Richardson put the match on. Still remember Paul Reed ended up winning, but it was my first trophy match. I won a trophy. I got 5th that match. It was actually the very first match I ever ran a dasher. I went to I didn't want to mess with the Fireform and brass and stuff, so I was running the 6x47, and then at the time Norma came out with their dasher brass, the long neck dasher. So I got some of that brass, and that was actually the very first match I shot dasher at, and got 5th. And then I go into 2017. We went to Spear Point. The very first year that Spear Point had a match in Kansas. Mm-hmm. That was my first win. I won that match. It was actually pretty funny. We were all standing around in a circle, and I was talking to Dave Preston, and I knew who he was. I'd seen him shoot a lot before. He started, several years before I did, and he'd won Golden Bullet. And some of those guys, and actual Charles Roberts, we were all just standing there talking, and the scores came out, and Charles Roberts just goes, "Who the hell is this Austin guy?" And Dave, he just pointed over at me and said, "Him." And
awkward.
So, yeah, I kind of got awkward there. But
I think I was at that match.
I think either that was the first year I went or the year that you went, and you were sucking water off of your cartridges because it was raining so bad.
Yeah, that first year it rained really hard.
Yeah, I remember that. We had to shoot off of a chained platform on a
the turkey chair
across a piece of 550 cord.
The
Ridiculous.
Turkey chair, yep. And it was a troop line on top of that. It's like a 3 or 4 target troop line. I think high score of the whole match was 2 or 3 or something. I got a 0 on that one.
That was a tough match for sure. So in that 2017-18 time frame, you're really starting to discover, like, okay, not only am I competent and pretty good at this, but I can be competitive to look to win every match I go to. When did you link up with what I'm going to call the other Oklahoma shooters? Because there's several of you guys that all seem to travel together now. When did you guys start finding each other, if you will?
Yeah, so Tate, he had shot a few years before I did, and I actually met Tate at through the OPPS shooting club matches. I won one of his club matches down there that he had at his place. He was in the midst of getting these impact actions going, and he actually had the actions built and going, and he just kind of approached me and said, "Hey, if I build you a left-handed action, will you run it?" And I said, "Well, yeah, absolutely." So 2017. That year, 2017, it was right before the NRL finale. The NRL finale that I won in 2017, I got serial number 001 left-handed action.
Nice.
Impact. So, and I'd kind of known Tate there. We'd kind of hung out. We traveled to, we traveled to not Raton. It was Logan, New Mexico. We shot the NRL match whenever they had it out there at Blue Ridge, where they have Steel Safari and stuff like that. We traveled together. Fast forward a little bit, Clay, he was traveling to a lot of matches and stuff, and same thing kind of through OPPS and just being local. And it's a funny story. Actually, Clay grew up just 15 miles north of me in Leedy, Oklahoma.
No kidding.
Yeah, and so we actually played Summer League baseball together.
Oh, wow.
Never really hung out much more than that. It was always kind of a rivalry, Leedy versus Hammond and this and that. But we did play some Summer League baseball together. So we knew each other already. Started traveling a little bit. And then Justin in there was friends with Clay. So that's kind of how we got linked up with Justin. He was just already friends. And we knew Justin. He started the range down there. He started foul bore precision. He started shooting quite a few of the national level matches. That would have been like 2017-ish. Maybe, yeah, that would have been about 2017-ish. Because I think he was at the second Spear Point match and then that Nebraska match.
Yeah, I think he announced his Silent Night match out at Broadwater. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Battle of Breakneck.
Right. Yep. That's an awesome match. I really wish that would come back.
Oh,
the first year, not so much. That was like, if you shot the very first year of Battle of Breakneck out there, it's like a rite of passage.
Yeah.
Most miserable I've ever been.
You deserve a medal or something. Yeah.
Everybody won that match for surviving.
Yeah, just for making it through it.
Yeah. That was a fun match, though. Just to go off on a quick tangent, I love the layout of that place. And they shot it north of Broadwater, and then they ended up shooting it kind of south of Bridgeport, but in the same universe. Yeah. And the terrain is just, it's pretty and it's challenging. The way the wind, just like you were talking about your practice range, the way that wind comes in and out of those canyons makes for a challenging day, and it kind of levels the playing field. When you've got wind and you're shooting, in the morning you're shooting due east, and then 15 minutes later you're shooting due west. I mean, it really makes it a pretty dynamic place to shoot.
I love how you're shooting prone out there, pretty much cliffed out.
Yeah.
On a lot of those stages too. It's really cool. And you're shooting across the canyon at 500 yards. All of a sudden that canyon stops and you're shooting at 13 or 1400.
Yeah.
That's fun.
That was awesome. So you got teamed up with the Oklahoma guys, and collectively you guys have just been on a tirade since then of really high level performance. And just on a semi-related note, what I really enjoy about the sport as a whole, and Preston, you can back me up on this, and as a mid-pack shooter, especially when I first got started in 2013-14 time frame, where you don't know anything and you don't know what you don't know, you walk in and everybody's so helpful and everybody's so open arms about, oh, hey, try this bag out or whatever. And if you're not, it's almost like you get weeded out, and you get the guys that are kind of stiff upper lipped, and eventually you just don't see them anymore. And one thing that I've really appreciated is, you go to a match and you see Tate, Austin, Clay, Justin, and there's more of you guys, and there's a ton of good shooters in the game. So welcoming, nobody's off-putting, and you guys are hyper focused, and it takes a lot of effort to stay focused. But when somebody, hey man, what do you think about this, that, or the other thing? And it's nice to see you guys interact with everybody else, and doesn't matter if they're going to score last or they're going to score, fifth against you guys, you talk to them the same, and I've really appreciated that.
And especially when upper level competitors, they all seem to have one thing in common: is just a huge competitive edge, right? Or a huge
drive, rather.
Drive, exactly. In some sports, those people can honestly be off-putting, but they're very few and far between in this game.
Yep, I've really appreciated that. And so, from a training standpoint, you guys are all elite level competitors now. What are you guys doing for training? And I know you guys have, if you would talk about it, the Jtac training, where you're training other people, but also what are you doing on a personal level? What does your practice cartridge selection look like? Your practice rifle?
Well, so most people don't like the answer that we give on this, but really anymore we don't do a lot of self-training.
Sure.
We've had the question asked several times, hey, if you had 50 rounds or whatever to get ready for a match, what are you going to do? And it's pretty unanimous between all of us. We're going to make sure our guns are running good. We're going to go out, we're going to shoot some distance, we're going to make sure all of our data is perfect, our velocity, our form factor, we're going to get a good 0. If I haven't shot for quite a while, I like to take 20 or 30 rounds and go knock the rust off. I'll go shoot some kind of a positional, maybe where I'm having a transition between 2 or 3 targets, positional. I don't practice a lot of prone because when I'm running my gun out, it's essentially practice right there. I'm still trying to get that focus in mind of, I want this first round to hit the target. I want the first round to hit the target as center as I can get it to hit. Mm-hmm. That way I can send 2 more rounds and make sure that my gun's running the way I want it to. Really, so much of the game is just, once you have your fundamentals built, once you know that once you have your equipment lined out, your gun's running good, you have the gear that you know that you can trust. It's just all mental. So I would say the biggest jump for me shooting-wise is whenever I figured out how to eliminate mental mistakes. And not that I don't still make them. I definitely do still make them. I actually made some just the other weekend in Kansas that I kicked myself for. That's kind of a rarity now, which is a good thing. But, you see so many guys that'll dial the wrong dope or, hold wind the wrong way or whatever it may be. And I think my biggest jump was whenever I figured out how to eliminate that for an entire match. And it's just the mental part of it. It's just hyper-focused. You have your routine of what you're going to do when you start the stage. You'll go through your little, I call it a checklist. I really don't have a checklist. It's just the things that I normally do before I start a stage. That way I can eliminate making any of those, the easy mental mistakes, misstyling dope, whatever it may be, stuff that cost you points that you would have probably hit the target had you not made that mistake.
That's simple enough.
But, so once I reach the top, I really don't have to practice anymore.
So simple.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I mean, really, I think it is. I think it's once you kind of break into it and figure out the mental game of it. The mental aspect of it is the hardest. And, it's still good to get some rounds down range. And I'll still shoot 15, 20 rounds. But a lot of that 15, 20 rounds is making sure my gun's running good. Now, I'm still going to make that a quality practice when I'm doing it. I'm still going to get something out of it. One thing I try to tell people, too, is practice with a purpose.
Yeah.
You can't just go out there and burn 20, 30 rounds just jacking around and expect to get better, right? I use the example like Michael Jordan. If he played last night and he sucked at shooting free throws, you think he's going to go to practice today and shoot a layup and shoot a 3 and just mess around? No, he's probably going to go get on the free throw line and practice some free throws until he's comfortable with it. Same deal. Practice with a purpose. You feel like you're sucking at one thing, go take 20, 30, 40 rounds, practice that till you feel comfortable with that. And try to treat it like a match. Try to go through the process. Okay, got to get my dope dialed. I'm going to have my dope dialed, ahead of time, whatever. I'm going to have everything lined out. And then whenever I'm ready, you don't even necessarily have to time yourself. It is good sometimes to time yourself just because everybody gets done when the clock starts, right? You forget to do stuff.
Yeah, and that's part of it too. Like when we first started, I feel like a lot of stages were 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Now a lot of them are getting down to 90 seconds, and that's one thing that I haven't heard from some of these elite level shooters yet. Is and maybe it's just that you don't notice it, but as a mid pack shooter, I certainly do. You guys' movements are so fluid.
Oh yeah.
And you have so much muscle memory, and
nothing
things
wasted.
Is so smooth. Whereas a new guy, or me is fumbling around trying to just
get the bag where you want it, and get the gun in the bag.
You guys are so smooth.
Yeah, so this stems from me. There's an old calf roping saying that was always drilled in my head, and it's slow is smooth, and smooth is fast, right? You watch a lot of guys, they're like that, that'll fumble with stuff. Probably where the difference is number one, experience, which you guys have experience too. You guys shot a lot, but it's the pre-stage thing. Whenever you're looking at a stage, we're going to have in mind already what we're going to do, where we're going to go, where we're going to place our rifle, where we're going to place our bag. That way, when we actually start the stage, everything's already set into motion, so there's no wasted movement. Just basically how we grab the rifle, how we grab the bag and move it is the time saving. And there's something to be said about it. You want to move fast and shoot slow. You don't want to rush while you're on the gun. And I actually see some top-level guys that, man, when they move between positions, they move pretty slow. You know, it's smooth, but they're still moving pretty slow. There's no urgency there. But then it seems like they get a real big urgency once they get on the rifle, and they may shoot 2 rounds really fast. Well, ultimately, that's going to end up costing them, you know, a few points here and there. Whereas I'm the opposite. Everything's kind of a race till I want to close the bolt, so I'm going to move efficiently and as quickly as I can. Once the bolt closes, I want to take that second and make sure everything's right before I break a shot, because I don't want to break a bad shot.
Yeah, you can't get that shot back either.
Well, and especially as we've talked about on this podcast, when a few places is separated by a point, or 2 points, 1 impact, all that matters.
Hey, here's one better for you. The 2020 Precision Rifle Series Championship was separated the first 3 places by a point for the whole season.
Wow.
So just think about that. One mental mistake, one, oh, shoot, I didn't quite get steady like I wanted to and broke a bad shot for the whole season could have changed the outcome of the 2020 PRS.
That is hyper competitive.
That's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Right.
Put your mind in a bottle.
Yeah.
Mind-boggling.
Yeah, that is pretty wild. And just to go back a little bit, you mentioned you want to practice with a purpose, and I think that's probably one of the best takeaways, because you, like us, like a ton of people in this game, we got young families, we got a job obligation, and we don't get a lot of time to you know, you're not single just out of college anymore. You're not going to go burn up 200 rounds a weekend doing barricade practice. You got to practice exactly with a purpose, and you got other obligations, and that's great to hear that. Of all those years of burning it down and burning out barrels and competing in a bunch of matches every year, now you're able to back the throttle off some of it and still compete at a high level because of what you did before was done with a purpose.
Yes, that's exactly right. And I do feel like that's the case. I feel like I've probably, for sure last year have shot better than I ever have. I felt better than I ever have shooting. Very comfortable behind the rifle. I do think us picking up and starting these Jtac classes, it's almost like a practice session doing the classes.
Yeah, it's probably helping you as well. Absolutely.
Yeah, I get to sit on glass and watch, you know, hundreds of rounds go down range in a weekend, helping people. You know, just observations that you see other people doing will help you learn too.
Mm-hmm.
So we pick up on stuff, you know, common mistakes that people make, and just use that to our advantage and don't make those mistakes too. Yeah.
Real quick, let's talk more about Jtac. And so obviously there's some initials there. We've already talked about those guys, but you can say who is who, and then what do you guys do? What's a Jtac class look like?
Okay, so Jtac's just an acronym. It's for Justin Watts, Tate Streeter, Austin Orgain, and Clay Blackadder. And I'm sure Tate probably talked about this some, but it actually started a guy from Oklahoma that shot forever, used to do a lot of classes. They call him the White Wolf, named Rich Reeves.
Yeah.
Everybody knows the White Wolf.
Oh, yeah. Everybody knows him. He actually talked us into starting this class. We were all shooting really well. We were all ultra competitive. He said, man, you guys need to get together and put a class on. So it was really his idea. We got together and kind of put a class on, and it was a hit. And we learned some stuff from the first few classes and expanded on that, and kind of made it what it is today. Basically, what's going to happen is if you sign up for a Jtac class, it's going to be 2 days. It's going to be a Saturday and a Sunday, most of the time. We'll start about 8 a.m., finish about 5:30, 6 o'clock in the evening sometimes. We do a classroom session the first half of the first day, break for lunch. We feed everybody. And then we get right to shooting. We'll break off into different segments. Half the group will go shoot some positional stuff, work on that, and we'll just basically show everybody how we do it. What's nice about it is for the most part, we're all the same. We have a lot of the same views and stuff, but there's a few things that are a little bit different that each of us do. So you can get 4 different opinions or 4 different options of what you want to do, and they all 4 work. I mean, they obviously all work.
Mm-hmm.
So you get to kind of tailor that to what style you like best, what you want to do. The other half of the group will go, they'll start shooting some prone stuff, shoot some troop line stages. Basically, we'll go over how we do our wind, how we read the wind, how we feel where the wind's coming from, what we put into our ballistic solver, what we write down for data. I mean, we don't hold anything back, man. We don't hold any secrets. Anything anybody wants to ask, we give it. Sometimes we probably get a little bit too deep in some of the muck and stuff, and we got to rein ourselves back in. Kind of start seeing eyes get glazed over, and it's just just doing it enough, and with the 4 of us and all the knowledge combined, we can get pretty in depth. But we try to make it. We try to make it make sense. We try to use a pragmatic way of approaching it to say, this is why we do it. This is how it works. And a lot of people have had success with it. We've had several people come take the class that have won matches after they take it.
Oh, that's
Hell
awesome.
Yeah.
So how many classes have you done? And I mean, what's the schedule look like for Jtac in 2022?
Oh, man. We've done... Put me on the spot. I don't know how many we've done total. Probably
Roundabout's fine.
Obviously, a few.
12 to 15.
Oh, wow.
Like
Okay, yeah, and how many people per class do you usually take?
We usually try to keep it to around 16 to 18 per class.
So a dozen classes of over a dozen people. You're training quite a few.
Yeah, and we've had quite a few repeat customers. Guys that will come back. It's a lot of information. Really, by about halfway through day 2, you can kind of tell that the fire's starting to burn out. The blank look and the stare, they're like, man, I just can't process all this information. And it is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And what we found that guys will pick up 1 or 2 things from the first time they come, and they'll practice on that and expand on that. And then they start realizing some of the things we were talking about. They'll come back, take the class again. And basically everyone that has taken multiple classes said that they picked up more the second and third time they've taken the class than they did the first time. Just because they, start seeing it as they're going, they start going, oh, yeah, I remember those guys were talking about that. So then they can come back, and then everything expands, and they learn really well.
Would you recommend to anybody listening that's thinking about taking a Jtac class, would you recommend they run a match or 2 to kind of to learn some of what they don't know about how, what it takes to run a match, and then take the class? Or you think this would be good for somebody right out of the gate, get their custom rifle, and then take the class?
We do have occasionally some beginner classes. It's harder for us to put on beginner classes because it's harder to get enough people gathered up that are on the beginner level to come take the class. And we do beginner classes, and it starts a lot more basic because the what we call the intermediate or advanced class gets pretty deep, and it actually would help if you've shot a few matches before you come, because then you kind of know. Basically, you kind of know what you don't know, right?
Yep.
You don't know what you don't know, but then when you go to a match, you might find out some of the things you don't know, and then some of the things we say make sense. If you just come straight to our class, never shot a match, and we've had a few guys do that, it's very difficult, and we have to basically branch those guys off and get those guys together and kind of tailor that part of the training to them, because it'll take away from the more advanced guys. And we want to do a really even class. We want everybody to get what they want out of it. And like we tell guys, if you leave there with a question that you don't know, it's your fault, because we give you every opportunity to pull us aside, ask a question, work one-on-one at some point. We try to break it up into smaller groups. With all 4 of us being there, we're able to break it up into different smaller groups and just work on specific things. So.
Sounds like Hornady needs to get about 16 guys together, and we need to make a trip down there.
Dang, we could.
Hey, talk them into it, man. We've offered. We've told Neil to get a group together, and when you guys all can, come down.
Yeah, because there's a lot of us here that have, we're in a unique environment where we're surrounded by it, but you have the work obligations, and you have family and whatever else is going on, and it's like, oh, there's a match, in Utah. So you fly to Utah and run the match, but it's like, well, that's my 1 or 2 for the year. And so there's a lot of cobwebs need blowed out, and then you don't get a chance to really learn that much. You just kind of get stuck in the same repeat cycle of what you already know, and you don't really do a lot of growing in that.
That's right. I've always found if I shoot a bunch of rounds a year, I'm going to do really good.
Weird.
Before I had kids, that was the best year I ever had, and I won a few local matches and stuff like that. But as soon as kids came, and I'm sure maybe it's the same for you, maybe not. It just you don't have the time. What's this year look like for your shooting schedule?
So I've got a busy shooting schedule. Really, it makes it even busier with the Jtac classes.
Sure.
You guys have talked about a schedule for Jtac. As of right now, we are doing 2 classes at the end of April in Wisconsin. We're going to do a Thursday, Friday class and then a Saturday, Sunday class at Ken and Missy Wheeler's range where they have the barrel maker. We're going to go put on a class up there for those guys. After that, I believe it's the 3rd weekend of May, somewhere around the 21st, we've got one scheduled. We've talked about June. We haven't scheduled one quite till June yet, but we'll probably pick one up in June.
So most of them are in Oklahoma, but you will travel?
We will travel. Pricing's a little bit different just to be able to cover travel. Like if you guys want us to come up to Nebraska and put together a whole Hornady team, if y'all got somewhere to have a good match. And hey, the key thing to it is it makes the Jtac classes in Oklahoma nice is you get to shoot in wind. It's hard to teach wind without any wind.
You don't got to worry about wind here.
Yeah, you guys are just like us. It's going to blow there just like it does here. So
yeah, I think go ahead. Sorry. I was just going to say I've said this before in a podcast, but growing up at shooting and then shooting the long range stuff early on and then getting competitive in the 2013 and 14 time frame, and then since then there have been instances where I've shot in Nebraska and made a no wind hold, but I can't really think of any time I've ever shot when there's actually been no wind present.
Right.
It's kind of
it's rare, man. I have to pick perfect days and first thing in the morning or in the evening or something like that. Yeah, that's the only time I ever get to not shoot in any wind.
So yeah, shooting schedule this year is busy for you.
It is. So I've been to a couple already. Went to Clay's, went to Box Canyon in Kansas, which is a great match if you guys have never been. They did suppressor only this year.
A one day there. That is a beautiful place.
It is. You get to shoot basically 360 degrees. Really cool terrain, wind. They made it a suppressor only match this year, so that was a fun dynamic. It'd been a while since I've got to shoot a suppressor only match. I mean, I guess Silent Night's probably the last time it is that, so that was pretty fun. Everybody running cans. Even as a guy that sells brakes, it was still fun to run a can again since everybody had to. We I'm planning on shooting Justin's match, his spring Okies Showdown. Right after that will be Raton. I'll go shoot there again. That's a cool place to shoot. There on the Whittington Center. It's a lot of fun. You get to shoot some pretty dynamic stuff. It's actually kind of strange because as much terrain features and everything that are there, it almost acts like a square range just because of the way it lays down in the canyon. And you don't always have a lot of wind. So it's kind of a tricky place to shoot depending on which direction the wind's coming from. But I really like that match. I just like that area. I like going to the mountains. I'm not sure. I'm obviously going to go shoot Hornady. That's one that's always on the schedule. I missed it the first. Let me think. Was last year the 3rd year or 2nd year?
I think it's
the 3rd
third.
year.
Yeah.
I had to miss the first 2 years. The first year was work. I was gone to work. And the 2nd year, I had other obligations could make it. So I made it last year. It was the first time I got to go shoot up there. Shot well there, finished 2nd. And so love that place, love that match. And then it's always good to go support you guys.
Yeah. So we didn't touch on this yet, but what was the time frame when you got involved with Hornady? Because we obviously make plenty of good bullets, but when did you start picking up on those?
So when you guys released the A-tips, this would have been, let me think about this, 2019? Mm-hmm. Sound right?
Yep.
About halfway through the year 2019, I switched over to the A-tip, bought every bullet I shot that year running A-tips. Into probably part of the way into 2021, 2020. It might have been first part of 2020 when I switched over to them. Anyway, I won the first Golden Bullet running A-tips, won the AG Cup running A-tips, nice. And at that point got picked up by Hornady. now Hornady team shooter, and so that's and I mean that's what I run. I run either a 6 Creedmoor or Dasher. One thing I have done that's been really nice is buy a lot of 6 Creedmoor just white box ammo, factory match ammo.
I was going to bring that up here. That I was going to ask you what your ammo and race gun setup looked like, and I was going to make a point of it that Justin Watts, I know, has burned it down with factory match Creedmoor ammo, but you've experienced good results as well.
Oh yeah, that stuff's great. I actually haven't shot a match with it, and no reason other than just mainly because I mostly run my Dasher. But you're talking about practice. When I do have a chance to practice, I can just grab a couple of boxes of that and go out and shoot the positional and shoot everything. Man, that factory ammo is great.
Yeah, well, that's cool to hear that you were running A-tips before you were a Hornady shooter. That's
really
cool.
And I was going to ask, we saw the difference, but from an elite level shooter who was already competing at a high level, what was the incentive? Before you were sponsored, what difference did you see when you switched to the A-tip? What was the draw there?
So funny story. Before the A-tip, I was running a competitor's bullet. Mm-hmm. Good bullet, nothing wrong with it. I got to noticing that some inconsistencies. I got to noticing at distance, I would really play a lot of like left edge, right edge, and I was shooting with Clay quite a bit, and I'd watch him shoot, and he's shooting long-range targets, and he never seemed to have that playing around elevation, playing around left edge, right edge. So I was like, you know what? They're kind of expensive on the expensive side, but this is an expensive sport.
Yeah.
And you pay for quality. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. So when I could, I bought a few thousand of them, tried them out, and I was like, holy cow, what a difference. You're running. If you're a BC guy, you're running a 309 BC basically on a 110 grain bullet. It really likes to run that speed in a Dasher. You're running about 2870. Your BC variation is really, really consistent, so we don't have to worry about elevation issues. Mm-hmm. And I didn't play that left and right stuff. That 309 BC just helped on the long. It seemed like they hold together a lot better on the longer range shots, and then they're really consistent on any of the mid range stuff. So. That's where I saw the difference. Just the consistency of them.
Yeah, because you can chase BC all you want, and there's people that still do that. Obviously you elite level shooters don't have to do that, but when you're getting consistent BCs, doesn't matter the BC.
It's the same.
That's going to make the difference.
Oh yeah, that's huge.
Range.
And I got to help in that initial research and development of that bullet, and that was really one of the chief things that we were trying to attack was the variability in the drag performance, so that you weren't getting vertical and wind dispersion that was out of your control. When obviously there's going to be vertical dispersion because of muzzle velocity variation, but when you can't control the difference shot to shot to shot in drag variability, that's something that we needed to control. And luckily, we've got a good team of ballistic engineers and did a bunch of R&D, and that was one of the main things we attacked. And I'm glad that you saw that, being an unsponsored guy, that you saw that, because we put a lot of effort into making that work the way it does, and that's just awesome. So what you said you run a Dasher, what does your gun setup look like? You still running an impact action?
I'll take a guess. It's an impact action and a foundation stock.
Yeah. Wild guess you had there. Yep, impact action, foundation stock. I'll run their Centurion, which is their somewhat newer stock, a little bit closer grip, wide fore-end. Really, really like the way the stock feels. It fits really well.
Whose barrels are you running nowadays?
Proof Research. I've been running Proof Research for about the last 3.5 years or so.
Love it.
Shot a lot of Proof barrels out, man.
Yeah.
I've been really, really happy with the performance of those barrels.
And what else we got? Trigger? What do you run for?
Trigger, Bixen Tac Sport Pro with the Gator Grip shoe. Yeah.
What? This is something I forgot to ask Tate, and I'm going to ask every PRS shooter or NRL, tactical long range shooter person we want to talk to. Precision rifle. How heavy is your trigger? What's it set at?
You want to take a guess?
I don't know. I've seen videos of you shooting. I've seen you shoot in person. If I had to guess, probably 6 ounces.
I'm going to go on the high end. I'm going to say it's 12 ounces.
8 ounces, right in between.
8 ounces. Hey,
8 ounces. I said all my triggers are 8 ounces. I've tried to run lighter. I've noticed that you get pretty fidgety. You're kind of almost afraid to rest your finger on the trigger too much if it's too light. To me, really, 8 ounces is just right. I can place my finger on the trigger and never have to worry about it going off. And basically, when I want to press it, I can press it and go. Especially with that Gator Grip shoe that I put on that Jtac Sport Pro. It's a very textured shoe. You can really feel the amount of pressure you're putting on it. It has a lot of feedback and a lot of feel on it.
Okay. Just
basically reduces the surface area on your finger.
Now, at the end of the barrel, you got a muzzle brake, and that's something that's close to home for you guys. Tell us about that Ace brake?
Okay, yeah, so that's a brake that Clay Blackheader and myself developed. Started a company called Ace Precision. Basically, what we wanted to do is we got tired of shooting the brakes that were most effective were the angled back ported brakes. And man, they were just so punishing on the shooter. You had a lot of blast coming back on the shooter. You got a lot of concussion. And so we wanted something that would perform well without doing that. And essentially the way we wanted it to perform well is for the rifle to stay flat. So we came up with the Ace Muzzle Brake. Tate Streeter had a big part in that. He helped a lot. We actually had some bodies made. We went to Tate's shop, got on his mill, and we just kind of worked through several different designs. And we tried different stuff, kind of coming from an engineering background. I had an idea kind of what I wanted it to look like in a way, and maybe some ways to do it. Actually, I think Tate came up with the way the ports are. So we have straight through ports, just like, a straight ported brake, but they're basically tilted forward. And so that tilt forward allowed more gas to be directed up through the portholes that we have on top of the brake that reduces muzzle rise. So you end up with a very flat shooting brake without the concussion on the shooter. So it's a lot more pleasure. So you don't have that headache after 2 days of just getting blasted the whole time. I mean, it's still a muzzle brake, right? It's still loud, but you don't feel, on some of those brakes you can feel it in your chest. It's almost like rattling your teeth loose. So that was our goal, is just basically reduce shooter fatigue with still effectiveness for recoil and being able to spot your shots, especially positionally. So then on top of that, we basically made kind of almost a vernier scale type indexing line so that you can essentially clock your brake, time your brake based on recoil. So if you get in a positional shot, kneeling positional shot, and you're shooting and you're seeing a consistent, say, up and left recoil pattern, you can actually turn the ports to the left into the recoil to help mitigate that recoil coming, so you stay a lot more center line.
Yeah, and that's so simple. I don't know why people haven't done that before.
It sounds so simple, but it's also it's really thoughtful in that in this game nobody's shooting a heavy recoiling rifle, so it's not necessarily that you're trying to reduce the recoil as much as you are trying to control it, because you want to keep your reticle on target as much as you can. So fantastic all the way around.
And it's kind of funny, when we were doing some of the development and playing with these, I actually put it on a 7 Psalm. It was a carbon fiber barrel hunting stock, lightweight 7 Psalm, shooting 198 tips. And I was able to stay on target and spot my shots off PRS barricade at 400 yards.
That's impressive.
So it was really effective. We've been really, really happy with the outcome of these breaks. And, we had a good name in the sport, but we really, really wanted to build something that worked. We didn't want to just rely on a name and people to buy. We wanted to design something that actually worked, that people run, that we were proud to run ourselves. So.
That is awesome. So, Preston, any last things you want to bring up in the world of precision rifle competitions before we switch gears to what we are actually better at? I'm kind of ready to switch gears. Let's talk about hunting stuff, because that's a game that we're a little bit better at than the precision rifle stuff, and you're no slouch. There's the list of animals that you've been able to take, and you just scroll through your Instagram or something, and there's some beautiful, majestic, good representations of a bunch of different animals.
Bucket list.
Yeah.
Especially that Aoudad. Tell us about that hunt. Where'd you go and what was you shooting?
Okay. So really funny story on the Aoudad. The first time we went Aoudad hunting is me and the buddy that I mentioned earlier on the range, Daniel Hughes. We went to South Texas, down by Sonora, Texas, and went on an Aoudad hunt and didn't really have any luck. We found some Aoudad. They were smaller than what we had expected or what we were told that we would probably be able to harvest. We ended up shooting some mouflon, had a really good time, shot some axis deer. So fast forward a few years later, he was on Craigslist and found this guy that was selling these Aoudad hunts for $1,600
I think I've seen that ad.
So he's sitting there, we're kind of wondering how sketchy this deal is. So we talked to the guy. What it ended up being was this guy had a ranch leased for all the deer hunting, and then he subleased all the deer hunting out. Well, he had some trail cameras out and found out that they were aoudad on there. He didn't even know they were there. And so he's like, yeah, I don't know. I just see if somebody wanted to go hunt them, and he wanted to kind of go with us too. So we went on this aoudad hunt and saw a lot of aoudad. Not really big aoudad, and there was a road that went around the whole ranch. The first day or two, we just kind of hunted the road, stopped and glassed up in the hills. This was down by Del Rio, Texas, kind of in hill country. Finally, kind of towards the end of the hunt, we decided we were just going to, start hoofing it. We were going to pack back into some of these deeper bowls and canyons and stuff where we couldn't see it from the road. And we got back in there, got on some aoudad. Daniel, he shot one. He shot a little dinker. You'd tell him, make fun of him. But it was kind of a last minute deal. It was the last half of the last day that we were going to be there. It was harvest that or harvest nothing at that point in time because we hadn't seen a lot once we got back in there. He got that one. We left our packs in the pickup. I had shot an axis deer earlier, and we gutted that and had that, hanging in a tree in the shade. And we left all our packs at the pickup. So we get there and realize, hey, we just killed this aoudad and we don't have a knife. So me and him both had semi-dull pocket knives. So we're skinning this thing out and cutting the back straps out of it with dull pocket knives, and I don't think we ended up caping his out, but we did. We wanted to get the skull. He wanted to do a skull mount on it.
Yeah.
So we could finally get all that done. It's kind of narrowing down to the last few hours of the hunt. We're walking around this big rim of the canyon, and they said, hey, we're going to go back. We're going to go get that axis deer. We're going to get that processed. So when it gets dark, we can kind of get out of here. And I said, okay, I'm going to stay up here and hunt a little longer, and I'll just hunt my way back to the cabin because it was only a couple of miles away. And so I'm glassing this rim, and I hear him say, Austin. Like, what? And there was a bunch of I don't know, I'd call them cedar trees. They're not cedar trees, but whatever those evergreen trees they have in South Texas. Mm-hmm. They were on the other side of those, so I kind of fumbled my way through there and found them, and they were on the other side in a bowl on the other side of the canyon, and they had spotted two rams fighting. So we got on the other side, and they were about, if I remember out there, 450, 460 yards away, but these two rams, man, they were just backing up, and they just pop, and it just echo through that canyon. It was really cool. And
that's awesome.
They had hit each other a couple times, and they'd stand side by side, and they'd hook their horns together and just pull on each other. They'd pull back and forth for a while, and then they'd back up and just slam. And it was really neat because, and I have the video somewhere. It was really terrible video. We didn't have a tripod or anything like that. So we watched them for a while doing that, and there's a really nice flat rock right there that I could lay down on. So I got laid down, and I told them, I said, hey, we picked out what one we thought was the biggest one. I said, hey, as soon as they back up, they stop for a second right before they hit each other. I said, as soon as he stops, I'm going to shoot. So I got on my dope dial as soon as he stopped. I dropped him right there. Funny story, we got around over there to him, and there was about 8 rams ran out of that canyon in the bottom of it. There was a couple of hot ewes in there.
Found them all.
Daniel, he was kicking himself because he shot the little one. I don't even think I shot the biggest ram out of there. There was 4 or 5 really nice shooters come out of that canyon. So yeah, that was the aoudad hunt. It was a lot. It was a ton of fun.
What cartridge and bullet was the aoudad with?
That was a 6.5 Psalm with 143 ELDX.
Okay.
Pretty fast. Running pretty fast.
I think I was running them right around 3100. So decent clip. Not super hot. It's kind of a short barrel. I think it's 20 or 22 inch barrel. So.
What's a typical hunting cartridge, or hunting rifle setup look like for you? Do you have a kind of a go-to, grab it out of the safe hunting gun?
I do. So I use that Psalm a lot on basically any deer size game or bigger, up to elk. So I hunt with the Psalm. It's impact action, proof carbon barrel, Manners EH1 stock. And depending on the scope, I might have a Night Force NX8 or a Loophole 3-18 Mark V.
Okay.
That's what I use for that. What I like to hunt smaller game with, coyotes, stuff like that, I have a 6 Creedmoor. And actually, a lot of the time, I just grab factory ammo. I've shot several stuff with the 103 LDX. Mm-hmm. I did just this year. I got some of the the Varmint ammo, the 87 grain VMAX, Varmint Express, and I've been really pleased with that. for me, I can hot rod that Creedmoor quite a bit. I run, when I do load it myself, I run the 87 grain B-Max. I actually running it pretty hot. It's about 3,500 feet a second.
Cruising.
On a hot day, I get a pretty stiff bolt lift, so I really need to back it down. I'm about out of that ammo, so killed enough coyotes this year. I've about ran out of that ammo, so I need to back it down. So I'm running about 34.
So talking about hand loading, this is something I guess I should have brought up in regard to precision rifle. If you're burning down matches like you are, how much hand loading are you doing, and what are you shooting for ammo? Where do you go for that?
So some of the time, depending on what timeline looks like, basically also how much time I give him. Clay at Clay's Cartridge Company loads most of my ammo.
Okay.
I load quite a bit of my own ammo too. Just like I said, just depending on time. You know, I try to keep enough components at my house and have some components at his house to where if I can give him enough heads up, he can get some ammo cranked out. And we pretty much have the same the same style. The nice thing about it is Clay and Tate and all those guys switched over to Dasher this year. I guess they tried to talk me into running VRA for a while, and I guess they figured they weren't going to get me to change.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know why I would. So instead they all changed the Dasher. That way Clay can just basically have a pet load for all our rifles and just load it up and go. And that's so far that's worked really well.
That's handy.
Well, I'm kind of curious. Like, let's say you didn't know Clay at all, or he didn't offer a service like that. As a elite level shooter, are you loading like a barrel's worth of ammunition at a time, or a match's worth of ammunition at a time?
Yeah, usually in match worth. Usually I'll do, you know, if I get a new barrel or whatever, I'll break it in first. I don't ever start load development until I've got a few hundred rounds on it. You know, 150, maybe 200 rounds on a barrel. Once I get it broke in and kind of cleaned up, then I'll start a little bit of load development. I've ran the Dasher enough years now. Load development's really quick. Usually it's 1 to 3 loads. So
yeah, people can really overcomplicate things. We're running 6 Creedmoors, and now I'm running a 6 Arc, and there's really no development anymore. Yeah, you kind of know what's going to work.
Yeah, super easy, especially when you know it.
Especially when you're running A-tips that are just forgiving a jump like crazy.
Yeah, you just kind of seat them and go. It doesn't really care.
Mm-hmm.
A-tip don't care.
Yeah,
it really doesn't. You know,
it doesn't. That's what's nice, and that's what's nice about it too. You know, I can just, you know, we actually had all our barrels chambered the same. Wade Studeville chambers all our barrels, so we did all identical reamers and everything. So seating depth's all the same. You know, the only thing that would vary is just barrel to barrel. We might be 1 or 2 tenths of powder difference really for an ideal load, but I mean, it's so consistent runs anyway.
Yeah,
you're splitting hairs.
Yeah, when you have top quality components and barrels, I mean, 1 or 2 tenths ain't going to make a difference.
No doubt. I mean, it's just, you know, we try to make it easy. We push the easy button.
Sure.
Figured out what works. Until, you know, something is proven better and greater, we probably won't switch anytime soon to anything.
Yeah. And then what we've learned here, we've got one particular engineer, Miles Neville. I'm sure you've met Miles.
They've talked.
Yeah, among a couple other folks, you know, what we've learned is, proving something that is actually better takes a lot.
A lot more than people are probably willing to do.
It takes more than a couple 5 or 10 or even 20-shot groups. I mean,
absolutely.
To actually prove it out that's statistically significant takes a ton of shooting, and it really opens your eyes to a couple tenths of powder really don't make that much of a difference.
Yep.
If any measurable difference at all. Now, one more change of gears. There's at least one more thing I want to talk about. This guy's a pilot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man. So, did you have any aviation background growing up, or just one day was like, man, that's cool, I should probably do that?
Really not at all. I've got an uncle that's a pilot. He flew commercial airlines for a while, then did some training stuff. Doesn't really live around here. He lived in Georgia. Honestly, what sparked it is I was working in the oil field. I had a job in West Texas, which is about 7.5 hours away from home. I was working 2 week on, 2 week off hitches down there. Essentially, I was just tired of making that drive, and I looked at it, and what kind of happened is a buddy of mine that shoots with his son, shot some club matches. He doesn't go to any big matches or anything. He got into a little aviation club. They had an airplane, and he started flying, and I was like, man, that's pretty cool. And I started looking at it, and I was like, hey, I can get these little planes and be in Pecos, Texas in 2 hours instead of 7.5 hours. So that was very intriguing to me, just being able to get home faster and get there faster. You know, it basically took me a day to get there and a day to get back on a 2 week hitch. So 2 weeks and 2 days is really what my hitch was.
Mm-hmm.
So I started getting my pilot's license. I was about a little over halfway through it whenever the oil field kind of crashed there. I actually left my hitch in West Texas to come home early because we were having a kid. We were having our son. So I left a few days early before my hitch was over. It was actually right in the very start of the coronavirus.
Oh, wow.
Basically, the hospital said they weren't letting me in unless I'd quarantine for at least a week. So I had to leave my hitch early and come home and quarantine so I could be there to watch my son be born.
Yeah.
Sure.
Knowing that they had laid our rigs down there, I was a completions consultant. So knowing that I only had a few wells to go back to, came home, stayed home for a week. I called my boss down there. He said, man, I don't want to tell you this, but they're not going to go ahead and complete these other wells that we had to complete. They're going to hold off. So basically didn't have a job there.
That had to be a bad timing because you got a family now.
Yeah, so it was very stressful for a very short amount of time because while I was home, we had our kid. Funny how the world works. A guy that I'd shot with quite a bit, a local guy that shot a lot of local club matches from Visay, texted me and said, hey, our wellfield engineer is leaving at an iodine production plant 45 miles from my house. I said, are you interested in a job? And I said, yes, I am. So I called my boss that I was working for in West Texas and just said, hey, do you have anything at all? I just had an opportunity possibly come up. And he said, and he's a really good guy. And actually, I got that job because he's a shooter as well. He shot several PRS matches and
networking.
Goes to the NRL matches. Yeah, man, it's amazing the people that you meet in this industry. So he said, a great guy to work for too. He said, man, don't hesitate to take it. I don't have any certainty right now at the oil field the way it is. I said, okay. So I told him, yeah, I'd be interested. And I sent in my resume. I had a Zoom interview with all the bosses the next day and had a job offer the day after. So.
Wow.
Cool.
And
yeah, I wasn't unemployed very long.
I'm hoping that they're obviously flexible with your shooting schedule too, or it looks like.
Yeah, so another funny story. My direct boss builds guns. He's a gunsmith. He's the vice president of this company I work for. He's a gunsmith. He really likes like centerfire 22 calibers, fast stuff 22 Hornet.
Mm-hmm.
Really likes thinking. Very intelligent guy. So he gets it, man. And then our plant manager, my other boss, he's a big time hunter. He's been to Africa 4 or 5 times. So man, they've been great. It's been a great company to work for. Their benefits are great. I just say, hey man, I'm going to be gone. I need to take off and go to this match or whatever. And they're like, yeah, okay.
Wow.
So far, as long as I'm doing my job and getting my work done, they've been very accommodating with us.
As long as you keep bringing home trophies.
Yeah, there you go. Keep representing.
Yeah, no kidding. Awesome. Well, it's been, I've learned a lot today, and just about you on a personal level, and I can say for all of us here at Hornady, we appreciate you, representing our brand in the way that you do.
Yeah.
Not only because you're bringing home trophies, but because you're genuinely a great guy to have with the Hornady logo on your shirt. It's good to be associated with good people, and so from all of us here, we appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I've been very, very pleased, and it's been really good getting to know you guys. We got to shoot. We all got to hang out together. What was that? It was in Nebraska last spring.
Oh, Nahaka.
Yeah.
The NRL match.
We all stayed in the house together. Got to meet you guys. Man, yeah, it's been great. You guys support us a lot. You guys support the business a lot. You support the community a lot, and I'm really glad to be a part of it. So
awesome, Preston. Is there anything last minute before we wrap this thing up?
No, I can't think of anything. No.
Awesome.
I got one. When are we all going to go hunting together? We need to go hunting together.
Let's do that. I'm a big mule deer fan.
I'm a big anything fan.
Me too. I've killed 2, both with a bow.
Okay, well we should get something on the books. Anything spot and stock. I don't know. It doesn't matter what state or what animal. I just like to be able to jab and stab and glass and run around.
It's really bad for me because basically all we have here is white-tailed deer and coyotes, and I love coyote hunting. Absolutely love coyote hunting. There's a thrill to it. Any more deer hunting is so boring. especially white-tailed deer. You know, there's not much spot and stalk here. You just sit over a wheat field or corn pile or canyon or something like that. And once I've been in the western states and hunted elk and hunted mule deer and hunted bear, it's like, oh, do I really have to sit here and hunt this stinking whitetail?
Yeah.
Can I just go west and spot and stalk something? Can I go hunt something fun?
Yeah.
There's different strokes for different folks.
So I'm not against anything. I'm all for any type of hunting. I'm just saying for me and my personality type, again, I don't care what animal it is. I just want to be able, and this is what I'm about to say doesn't actually equate to me killing anything more or less, but I like to feel like I'm being proactive. And for me, if I can stand up and walk for 3 miles to get to a better spot or whatever, I'll hunt whitetail all day, but I prefer the spot and stalk style thing. And if you haven't hunted the Nebraska Sandhills, Austin,
I haven't.
I'm not generally super impressed with hunting opportunities in Nebraska, but I'll tell you what, the Sandhills have just a draw to them because they're so unforgiving, they're so desolate, and it's just a blast. So we could, and you got an opportunity for mule deer and whitetail and spot and stalk style hunting. And if you're like me, I don't know if I was like bit by something when I was a child or something, but I have this infection where if I'm in the perfect glassing spot and it took me 3 miles to get there, and if I can see a hill that may be just a little bit higher in elevation, guess I got to go over there. I can't not do it. So the Sandhills really lend themselves.
You sound like my buddy from Colorado. He's a big time hunter and outfitter, and it's like we get somewhere, and he's from the area, and we're hunting in the mountains, and God, he just kills us to get there. You're coming from the Flatlander like I am.
Sure.
And we get up there, and I'm like, okay, we can stop and glass get a break or something like that. We'll sit down, and an elk will bugle across the canyon. He's like, yep, we got to get over there now. Boom, gone. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, that's
hey, don't get me wrong. I probably came off a little bit wrong. I still love to deer hunt. I just love to hunt. Period. It doesn't matter. But if I had my druthers, I'd be in a western state hunting elk or mule deer.
Well, let's get something on the books for Nebraska whitetail, or Nebraska Sandhills, because the tags are over the counter, largely over the counter. They're really affordable, and it's just a beautiful area to hunt. So let's get that on the books.
And it's very interesting habitat too, because like if you've hunted the mountains, you'll be like, oh, I guess these are hills. But the second you take a step and your footing is just gone because it's sand, it's a little bit of an equalizer.
It really is. Yeah, you're not. Nebraska Sandhills range from probably 3,000 to 4,500 feet above sea level, so not super high. But you step, your heel sinks. You roll onto the balls of your feet. The balls of your feet sink. You push off your toes sink. So the front of your calves and then your hip flexors just get roasted. I haven't found a way to train for that because it steals every step away from you.
Yeah, you just got to find a big sand hill and run up and down.
Yeah,
find whatever vegetation you can step on.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Austin, again, thanks for coming on today, and we just can't say enough good things about you. So, Preston, Austin, thanks for sitting down, guys. Appreciate you tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next one.